Dzień dobry, moi drodzy. First, I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. Just for your information, I put on the right side link to the Slido and the password, so if you would like to ask me something, use it. Why not? By the way, I'm so happy to see so many early birds. Come on, after party. I thought that the room will be empty, so it's really nice to see you folks. My name is Emilia. I'm a QA architect, trainer, and co-organizer of a Test Fest. This is a conference in Wrocław for people who care about quality. I work at Snowflake, a product company which develop data cloud and apps to analyze this data. By the way, how many of you, before my introduction, knew about the QA architect role? Just curiosity. Okay, one person. That's even two person. Whoa, two people. Great. Because to be honest, I found out about that when I got promoted. Yeah, surprisingly. I believe that every automation tester needs to know how to code. Because look at that. Developer codes feature behavior, right? Automation tester codes user behavior. So their role, to be honest, their roles are quite similar, and the code maintenance should be easy. So because of that, I think that automation testers should have knowledge at least at the level of regular developer. And this information will help you to understand why I mention it later on. Because today's topic is about performance testing and shift-left testing concept. Right, my first touch with that concept was back in 2017, maybe in 2018. My role was to prepare a strategy to adapt shift-left testing concept within the organization. It was just about strategy without implementing it. So my role was to prepare a document, and performance tests were just one module, nothing more. Later on, some time passed, I start work at SIA. I don't know if you heard about this company, where I work on several projects. Yep, it was a nice time. And when I work remotely from the central Sudets, I got a call. It was my boss. Usually I don't many calls from him, so yeah, the adrenaline was quite high. But yeah, I answered it and I was like, Martin, what's up? What do you want? What did I do? Tell me in the beginning. But he was like, nah, come on. I have quite interesting opportunity. One of our customers would like to perform performance tests at the lowest level of test pyramid. And I was like, okay, go on. I didn't do nothing wrong, so that's okay. He wanted to use code to check if everything is okay, without, network issues and etc. And he asked me, my boss, he asked me about, okay, so Emilia, do you have any experience with it? And I said with racing heart that yes, but only in theory. Because I mentioned about the, previous strategy, preparation and etc. So I told him that yeah, but just for your information, I do not have any experience, practical experience, only theory, nothing more. So I could hear him smiling. I could hear that he's like, yeah, we got this customer. But I was like, no, hold your horses, Martin, come on. In the beginning, I need to ask a few things. So, do we know about the web API coverage? Do we know if the client already covered web API tests? Because, come on, don't fool yourself. Normally, this stage is good enough to check our performance. The next step was about the need. Do we need the client's need? Do we know his expectations? After the replies, I said, yeah, we can go with it. Why not? The call ended. My excitement ended. And I panicked. I panicked because, you know, it's a niche, right? It's not our daily topic to perform performance tests at the lowest level. So my first was like, okay, few years back, I couldn't find somebody who would have this kind of experience, right? So what right now? The next thing was about my knowledge, about my technical knowledge, because, you know, you need to be really good at that to perform such tests. Like the fear of the unknown. And luckily, I have my husband, who is really calm and self-assured, and I remember his words in Polish, like, hey, it's just a POC, proof of concept. So it doesn't need to work. You need to verify if there's a possibility to achieve it. That's all. So I got back to work. So before going further, I would like to have a common language, common definition of few topics: shift-left testing, concept, and performance testing. So about shift-left testing. Shift-left testing is performed earlier in the life cycle. Quick question: who is using this concept right now in the companies? So few of them. That's great. I hope that next year more hands will be visible to me. More hands will be up. So about this concept. So we are using design phase to find everything what we can. So using refinement, using requirements, or finding edge cases during the design phase, we can already see a lot of issues. We can already predict them, right? So to not wait for the implementation phase. Later on, I really believe that testers supposed to support unit testing. And I don't mean by writing them. Just for your information, I really don't mean by writing them. I think that due to our different mindsets, right, we can support each other. We can find solution earlier, and even by checking name of the test case, we can already find if we cover all the business needs, all edge cases, and etc. at the level of unit test. And within my teams, all testers, even manuals, they perform such thing. So just for your information. So knowing something more about shift-left testing, I would like to go to performance testing. So performance testing is a software testing process under a particular workload. And like I mentioned, normally covering web API is really enough. Sometimes we perform such tests, like, I don't know, using UI, maybe during the design phase. Even by looking at the monitoring, we could already find some performance issue, but using unit tests or component, it's not so usual, I would say. I remember my days few years ago, because I started my career 12 years ago, that when I talked with the clients, like, hey, do we need performance tests? Would you like to check your, performance of your code, of your logic, business app, or something like that? Most of the clients were like, meh, come on, we don't need them, or we have more urgent issues. So, yeah, the knowledge was, I would say, quite terrible. Until our app failed, because of the large load on production environment, or maybe our clients resigned from shopping due to the performance issue, or the last thing, due to the not so good communication between marketing department and IT. I don't know if you heard this case. So yep, and Black Friday is my favorite day of the year, even better than my birthday. So knowing, having the same definitions, we can go further. Now back to the project. From the customer side, I contacted R&D manager. So during meetings, I found out that, for example, they are using Java, they are using Spring Boot, they are using JUnit 4, they are using Jupyter, they are using WireMock, and a few other tools. Beside that, we define some requirements. How can we be sure that POC is ended, right? How can we be sure that POC succeeded? So we found out, or I found out, that the best solution will be using open source tool. Next thing was about effortless implementation. That the manager wouldn't want to be honest, add teams more work. So I already knew that I need to reuse existing tests. The next thing was about pipeline and monitoring implementation. And here, about the pipeline. They wanted me to prepare a template which will, for ease of use, and document it, just, because not everybody would like to play with DevOps stuff. So yeah, they should supposed to have this kind of solution about the monitoring and response time. Yeah, most of the time we have SLA, SLX, because I heard about many documents or good practices, right? And it's some kind of guidance. And what about unit test? Normally, unit tests should take, I don't know, like 2 milliseconds, maybe 4, or let's get crazy, 10 milliseconds, right? Why not? And that's okay, but when we are checking performance, there are no guidelines at all. So I found 2 solutions how we could have it. First one was about baseline, to run the first test suite of performance tests and treat it as a baseline. Second one was about algorithm and complexity, because, come on, we all know how to calculate complexity, right? Of specific method, for example, algorithm. So we could do it, but the question is it worth it? Do we really need such a difficult approach to achieve it? Like I said, the implementation, the solution should be effortless. So, nope, maybe we'll not go with that. Yes, something more? No, I would say that's all. So next thing is research. I already knew the requirements, right? I already knew some stuff. So we could go to search for a tool. I found that 2 tools meet the criteria. I don't know if you know them already, but first one is what? First one is OpenJDK Java Micro Benchmark Harness. I think that OpenJDK is quite commonly used, right? And the second one is Zero Code TDD. And in the meantime, I was looking for somebody who has some experience or at least some knowledge, right, about such tests. And I was like writing to many friends and many strangers from different parts of the world. Surprisingly, many of them replied. And for me, not really with happy news, not so satisfying news, because they said, yeah, it's quite interesting concept. Will you share afterwards with me some stuff? So I was like, yeah, I need to go deeper. And finally, I found the chosen one. I don't know if you heard about this guy, but Marcin Grzejszczak is a person responsible for Spring Cloud contract. And I asked him like, hey Marcin, what do you think about tests? What do you think about performance tests? Do you use them on the unit level? And he said, yeah, come on, let's have a chat, more or less, because, yeah, I cut it, this message to him a little bit. And after 15 minutes, I already knew that I cannot go with the same solution as he has, due to different reasons. I will tell you in a minute why. So, yeah, but the knowledge sharing was. So, at least, I'm happy because of that. So knowing what he has, I need to go a little bit deeper. For example, he was using OpenJDK, and I couldn't go with it. I don't know if you know or read sometimes the licenses of the libraries which you use, but Zero-Code TDD has a really good license, which allows me to do a lot with the code, like modify, use it within different organizations, community, and etc. OpenJDK, it's not so friendly to use within the corporation. I don't know if you talk with lawyers sometimes, but yeah. What else? Why I chose to go with Zero-Code? So the community. 3 years ago, the community was really active, although nobody admits to use it, to use this library as I wanted to use, but hey, I cannot have everything, right? The second thing was that their performance solution was really nice, and it was really elegant, so I wanted to go a little bit deeper with that. And the next thing is that they are supporting JUnit 4 and JUnit 5, right? So as you know, my client used that, so it's good to have it. Right now, having the tool, we are going to check which tests we would like to adapt or use for our performance tests. So if you are talking about unit test, on the right side you have test pyramid created by Natalia Krawczyk from PGS, right now Xebia company, I think, which shows really nice separation, I would say. And in the beginning, all tests are important, right? But here I wanted to focus on unit tests and component tests. So if I want to go with unit tests, I need to find the tests which test high space complexity, or uses, right, methods with high space complexity, frequently executed blocks of code, because I wanted to check the code, not the network issues. Yep, something more I would like to add, that maybe serialization. If we are using some kind of library which is used by thousands of people, there's no need to test serialization, right? In that case, so just for information. About component tests, I wanted to focus on tests which were executing some kind of code with logic, right? Without this network issue. So yeah, we cover already tool, test, and now it's for time. Like I said, we had various ideas, right? How to check it, what should we do, and etc. And after writing down pros and cons of every solution, 2 of them, we decided, I recommended to go with deviation, to use delta, to run test every night and check the deviation, right? That, for example, to check if changes to the code made something to our performance or not really. I would say that this is quite an elegant solution and it's easy to use, so effortless, right? By the way, I wanted also to add notification to check or to notify the team about strange performance behavior. So we have a complete flow. We already design our solution, right? So it's time for initial implementation. Just for information, this phase is about initial configuration, so to check, in the beginning, to get the library better, and to check if some issues which occurs during the implementation are connected to the library or our production code. So I use new project to check the initial configuration. And here on the screen, you can see an example. Let's assume that this test is in our repository. I know, it's not so good, right? But still, it's just an example. To use our zero-code TDD library, you need to add at least 2 additional files. Configuration file and class with performance test. If you are already familiar with the performance test, you know these parameters. But for everybody, I will quickly describe them. So the first one is number of threads. And here, thread is not mesh networking protocol, but it's treated as a user, right? Next one is ramp-up period, so like something like a heat-up period, I would say. Next is how many times we would like to run this test, and do we want to HTML report or not? Because these reports are not for us; they're for business, and they like diagrams, right? So why not? So this is about the configuration file. The next thing is about class with performance test. So to use this library, you need to map your existing tests within methods. One method represents one performance test. And here, you can use one unit test or the whole sequence. The scenarios are up to you. What would you like to do? What would you like to achieve? To explain it from the top, we can see few annotations about test, class, which I needed to add to be able to run in parallel mode, specify a configuration file, the one which I mentioned, name of the test, of course, and mapping, which existing test we would like to use, and that's it. The whole implementation, right? Here you can see report, and after the execution is generated, not maybe HTML, but just a raw data. And to be honest, I could finish my presentation here, if not the issues. Or I would say challenges, right? So I had some issues with JUnit and JUnit 5. In the beginning, my initial configuration implementation was connected to tests using JUnit 4, because I thought that all tests are written using this framework. And everything was great. Seriously, this library is the best one. But I found out that nope, not really. Most of the development teams are using JUnit 5. So I switched, and the issues arrived, right? So in the beginning, I checked what was failing, why something wasn't working. So I went to check the library tests, and they were failing. So come on, I started my implementation with fixing the test from the library, and I found out that for example, parallel load was not properly configured. The class with parallel execution read our test as in a sequence. So come on. I have feature which I cannot use, so I changed it. The first thing. The second thing was with report. So, as I mentioned, unit test normally takes like 2 milliseconds, 5, let's get crazy, 10. But here I found out that the same unit test run 10 times could take like 0 seconds, or 5. Something is not okay, something is not right here, right? So yeah, I went a little bit deeper. I dig a little bit, and I found out that to calculate response time, I need 2 parameters, start time and end time. And they both had the same type, local, date, time. So as you know, this type is not so precise, especially using unit test. So I changed it to nanotype type. I also watched some interesting presentation from conference in Norway, but I don't remember who presented it, about the local date time types and etc. And the next issue was about access. Yeah, I tried to configure the pipeline, and I found out that I can only run it, nothing more. Ta-da! Wondering why. I'm wondering why they didn't allow me to do everything from the beginning. Yep. So what's next? So the technical issues are behind me. The first pancake is always spoiled. So now it's time to work with the team. I found out that 4 teams wanted to take part in the POC. The manager checked, or I would say, point one team where he thought the tests are needed. The team was really eager to learn. They were ambitious people. They want to check it, right? So just before going further, I asked them that, hey, folks, because there had also girls, so, hey, folks, I would like to see some tests to be sure that the customized library, Zero Code TDD, with changes which I made, is properly configured, right? That I can use it, and every issue is connected to your production code, not with the library. So they point me a few tests, and I could move on. And to be honest, I would really like to say that it was easy peasy. Really, I would like to say that, but I cannot. New issues arrive. So the first one was connected with the Spring context. The context was shared, so running one test, the same test, for example, 10 times, causes errors due to closing the context after the first test. So I needed to change it and separate context for every test. Later on, there was an issue with time, again. Why? Because, like I said, during the initial configuration, I used empty project, right? Completely new project without their implementation. So I found out that that the first test calculates or implement also, or takes into account, oh, this is the better words, takes into account the initialization time, not only just the tests. Again, adjustment mode on. The next issue were connected to WireMock and integration tests. It happens that WireMock is set up, I don't know if you heard about this tool, but it's quite great. It happens that WireMock is set up with Spring context or within the tests. So also I need to change it. And there was an issue with HTTP protocol because it was hard-coded somehow, and I needed to change it right. Report. Report again. JUnit 5 didn't pass the name. There were 2 issues. First one was connected with the names of the test. Second one was connected to the results. And the first one, the naming one, I found out that test context was not shared. Why? Because I did it. I did it, so I needed to fix it again. The next thing was that the results were displayed 4 times, for example, in the report. So the same test was duplicated at least once. And I found out that Zero Code library using JUnit 5, not JUnit 4, was expecting to be cleaned after every time, after running one test, not the whole class, but one test. And this change forced me to change the engine of the library. So maybe right now you know why I think that automation testers needs to know how to code. Last but not least, tests, assertions. Within a test, there was an assertion that checked if the server got only 1 request. Oops, that's not really what I wanted to have running performance tests, right? So small changes to the logic of this test. And here we are going and we are having final grande finale, right? The final results. So everything was behind me, the technical issue, the requirements, the design phase, the first implementation, and I could go with production code, right? Yeah, I could go with it. It was time to focus on the teams. And on the stage, something came out. Something that should have come out before the start of this work, when I asked the client about their needs. Because after a few meetings with the development team, I found out that they don't need this kind of tests, because their solution, I would say, their service was just mapping, nothing more. So what I did next, I went to the other 3 teams, right? That, hey guys, hey folks, how about you? And what I found out? they didn't need it either. So, yep, just imagine my face. I was a little bit confused. I felt like I failed, but when I talk about it with my husband, he said like, hey, it's just a POC. It was just a POC. You already showed that the implementation can be done, but you are not responsible for the implementation. And with this information, stay tuned, because I would like to say that one company found me and they have this need. They want to have this kind of tests. And yeah, we will see next few years what will happen. So thank you very much. I will switch to Slido if you have any question. If not, coffee time, right? So thank you very much. Let's stay in touch and see you later on. Great. So just give me 1 minute to switch this one. GeeCON, something there. Q&A. Right. Maybe the first one. Is it a good idea to run those tests during each build or better in separate pipeline? So I would say that separate pipeline. Why? Because I don't know your pipelines, but I would say that each build is a little bit time consuming, right? Our builds supposed to be fast, right? And have like, fast fail information, nothing more. So I would suggest to use it as a separate pipeline and probably to run it, in the lowest performance time, I would say. Yep. The next question. So at all, how long it took? Because for JMeter, it looks like it is 1 week case. That's true. If you have good implementation, if you plan it really well, right? So the whole solution, to be honest, with JUnit 4, I would say it was also 1 week. With JUnit 5, not so much. I spent like 80 hours to customize the library. And yeah, this particular company didn't use it at all. POC, my dears, POC. So, yep, with all this question, I would like to thank you really, and have a good coffee. See ya.